Welcome back to the Eight Man Breakdowns podcast. This is where we discuss all phases of the game of football, including philosophy, play concepts, questions, and more. Joining us today is Coach Taylor Bauman. Coach Bauman is the head coach at Nickerson High School and heading into his second season at Nickerson. Overall, in his coaching career, he has coached for now just over 6 years. I've known of Coach Bauman since high school, but I didn't know him all that well until I interviewed to be his replacement here at Stafford last year. Since then, we've kind of really gotten to know each other pretty well. But anyways, Coach, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sorry it's so late. Got to get the kids to bed sometimes.
No problem. All right, so we'll start off by just having you talk about yourself a little bit, tell us about your football background and kind of how you got started coaching football.
Yeah, so my name's Taylor Bauman. I'm the head football coach at Nickerson High School in Nickerson, Kansas right now. Um, Grew up in Sabetha, Kansas. My dad was a teacher and coach. He was the defensive coordinator for Sabetha as long as I was there in high school. Um, and I went on and played my freshman year of college at Sterling College, then decided to transfer and play baseball at Central Christian College of Kansas in McPherson. Um, I while I was in college, married my high school sweetheart, and right before our senior year of college, she was at K State, and we both were able to student teach at the same time. And she graduated in December of 2016. I still had one semester left of classes before I was able to graduate, and she was able to get a job teaching at Stafford High School in Stafford, Kansas, for that second semester of the 2016-17 school year. And then after I graduated, I was able to get a job there as well. They were looking for a head football coach, and I actually taught middle school special ed my first year. And then after that, moved to middle school, high school PE for a year. And then after that, for the last 3 years, I was the AD at the middle school and high school, and just high school PE and weights teacher, again, while coaching football there for 5 years. So never really had an opportunity to be an assistant football coach. Always been a head football coach since I started at age 21, and then moved up to 3A this year, a little bit different, going back to 11 man after being an 8-man game for a while. Actually, my first 8-man game I ever saw live was the first one I coached. Obviously, you guys at Baileyville were close enough, but never got to see one of your games. So all it was YouTube and huddle film until I got to coach a game live. So it was kind of a new experience for me, but after 5 years, I really enjoy it. Still love to watch the games, and it's just a lot different. I mean, different in the sense of, a lot of scoring, a lot more space. Speed's kind of the name of the game, but it's also still the same game. I mean, it's still football. It's still you block and tackles. You got to do those things to be successful. So really enjoy where I was at Stafford, but also enjoy getting the opportunity to coach at a little bit bigger school with a little bit more resources and more kids that we'll build a program here.
So was there anyone in your life that kind of led to your path as a coach?
Yeah, so obviously, like I said, my dad has been a coach for as long as I can remember. I mean, just growing up, I got a 3-year-old son now, and I'm in the middle of coaching girls basketball here in Nickerson as well. And he got to take his first bus ride with us and sit on the bench for the game. And those are my earliest memories with my dad, sitting on the bench for games when I was in, let's see, it would have been third grade. My dad won his first state championship and coaching girls basketball. So I remember that, being on the bench and being in the locker room celebrating those. And then he coached, he and another dad who had a kid our age started the 5th and 6th grade program in Sabetha when we became 5th graders. And then they were the 7th grade coaches. And then they didn't coach us in 8th grade, but then they both moved up to high school with us as we became in high school. And then he's coached since then until this is his first year not coaching football in his teaching career because he moved up to principal. So obviously dad is my first kind of experience and role model in the coaching aspect. But then I had an absolutely fantastic head coach, Coach Garrett Michael Sabetha, who I still talk to this day and get advice from. And just he's a great man and someone I really look up to. And he's been a great mentor for me in the coaching realm for sure.
What, if anything, would you say separates your program from others?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily separates us or differently. It's just kind of how I grew up, like I said, with Coach Michael at Sabetha. But I really try to preach faith, family, football. In that order, I try to preach. We're trying to build great men, which then I think in turn turns into great players. But that's something that was instilled in me, like I said, growing up, and I think Coach Michael's even grown in that since I've been gone, and things that I started at Stafford there, and then kind of moved on to here. So little things like we pray with our opposing team after every game, no matter we win or lose. I mean, this year we got smoked in a game, even though it's hard, we still prayed with them. And we had a couple games where maybe it gets a little chippy, or the competitiveness comes out in us, and things get hard in the game, or we even had a game that a kid got kicked out, and we still there's times that I don't want to after a rough game, but then the kids kind of humble me and say, "Hey, no, we got to do this. This is what we do." Really just trying to preach to them that there's more to life than football. Um, and as hard as it is for me sometimes to realize, my priorities are with my faith and with my family, and sometimes I don't do the best job of showing that. Like I said, I got two kids. I got a 3-year old and a 9-month old, and my wife is a stay at home mom. This year she taught for 5 years at Stafford there, but this year she's been able to stay home, and it's hard for her. And I'm gone a lot, and I try to make sure that I'm home at certain times. It doesn't always work that way, whether practice runs long or sometimes I get, like I said, that competitive nature comes out of me. And like, hey, this isn't right at practice, so we got to keep working on it until we get it right. And then that makes me home. And sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of nights, especially still coaching basketball, where I'm gone from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So 12-hour days essentially. And that's hard for her. But I got a fantastic wife and family, and she kind of runs the show around here and does a great job of getting both boys ready to go, and things like that. And I try to model that for our kids too. That my family's important, making sure that I'm home as early as I can be, so I can eat dinner with my kids before they go to bed. Or one thing that I said in my interview at Nickerson, and I'll say in every interview, when I'm at home, I don't watch film, because that's my family time. Um, and does that maybe put me at a disadvantage? I don't know. I don't really feel like it does, but I guess I'll never find out because I'm not willing to give up on that priority of my family first before football. And I don't, like I said, I don't always do a great job of that, but I try to model that for our guys, because the way I treat people, my family, my degree, and those things have gotten me a lot farther in life rather than my high school football record. I mean, we were never great in high school football. We had one of my 4 years, I had one winning season. Um, just things like that, I think have gotten me to where I'm at, more so than how good I was in high school football, because I really wasn't that great. But I love the game and I love these kids, and trying to. Well, I tell them every year that I'll feel more successful as a coach 10 years down the road when you come watch a game at your alma mater, and you got a wife and you got a little girl, a little son in your arm, and they say, "Hey, he's a great husband, he's a great father to us," more so than I will winning a state championship with him, or anything like that. Like I said, I don't know if it's really any different, but I really try, and I don't always do a great job of it because I want to win just as much as anybody. But I really try to instill that in our guys, that there's more to life than football. And if football is the main priority in your life, it's going to be hard because football ends for everybody at some point. Whether you become a coach or you get to play in college or you get the privilege of even playing in the NFL, it ends for everybody at some point. And there's got to be there's got to be things that you fall back on. And my faith is the first thing that I fall back on, and then obviously my family. My family will be with me for the rest of my life, and my faith will be with me even past this life. So those things are more important than football, and I try to instill that in our guys. And sometimes they kind of accepted that, and sometimes they don't. And that's kind of their decision. But I don't feel like I'm doing it justice or these guys justice if I don't talk to them about that stuff outside of football.
Yep, and that's awesome. I know we heard that all year, and the guys here continued your tradition, the faith, family,
Mhm.
football, and the team prayer afterwards, which is awesome. And like you said, it is hard at times. Even if you win, even if you beat the opposing team,
Right,
it's almost like they might not want to come out here and do a prayer with us.
right,
The coach might not, but but they do. So it's good to put everything aside and come together for, a common belief. And and those guys definitely took that to heart, the guys you had over the
Yeah.
last 4 or 5 years. So, which is awesome to see. I would definitely say that's something that separates you guys because you don't see every team praying afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's a great thing. So tell us a little bit about this season. Would you change anything if you got another chance at it? What might you change if you got
Yeah.
another?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, this is my first year getting back to 11 man, going from 8 man and a small 1A Division II school here in Kansas to a 3A school was a pretty big jump for me. And we had a extremely, I think, one of the toughest districts in the state. So we finished the year 1-8, which is obviously not where we wanted to be, not where I thought we could have been, based off of our potential. But I saw some growth, and there's definitely a lot of things I'd change, a lot of things I think I would do differently. Kind of the thing I talk about most is I felt like I personally came into it as a coach, um, who felt like it was their sixth year of head coaching, not their first year at a new school. So what I mean by that is there's things that I tried to continue doing that I did at Stafford that I was able to do because I'd been there for 5 years, and those kids that I had, were seventh graders when I started, so they knew what to expect coming into high school, and these kids didn't know me from Adam. So there's things that I wish I would have done that I did my first year at Stafford that I didn't do my first year here at Nickerson. Things like holding them accountable in the classroom. At Stafford, we did grade checks, and then it became where it wasn't an issue because those guys knew that it was important to me that they keep their grades up. And so this year I didn't start with grade checks, and it became an issue with guys having Fs and different things like that, and being on the fringe of ineligibility. Based on our school's policy. So that's something that I wish I would have started earlier, and just holding them more accountable in other aspects as well. Like I said, just kind of came in, I don't want to say content, but just with the mindset of it's the same kids, and it's not. They don't know, like I said, they didn't know me or what my expectations were. Um, and so that's something I wish I would have changed. Um, Other than that, it's hard. Coming to a school, most schools aren't looking for a coach because they've had a lot of success recently. So I came into a situation where I was the third coach in 3 years, just very similar to what I came into in Stafford. Um, but so these kids really just are looking for someone they feel like they can trust and someone that's going to stick around. And so hopefully that will help continue to get better as I stay for a while, which is the plan. But you never know. So really, I think the main thing is, like I said, just holding the kids more accountable. I think I could have done a better job, and then delegating a little bit better. Being at Stafford, I mean, the guys, but we had great Rule 10 coaches, but they all had another job or something else that they were doing throughout the day. So I did everything. And coming to a bigger school, I still tried to do everything, and it was a lot for me. And I don't feel like I utilized my assistant coaches as well as I could have. So that's something I'd like to work on this coming year as well. Is just utilizing those guys and their knowledge and their abilities, and not just relying on the stuff I do.
So what specifically do you look forward to most going forward into next season?
Kind of like I said with the last question, is just that continuity of. I mean, this next year senior class will be the first year they've had the same coach for 2 years in a row. So I felt like when you're installing a new offensive system, when you're installing a defensive system, and just new systems for accountability and things like that, there's so much news that's going in that I don't feel like we could really get in depth of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish, both on the field and off the field. Um, because we're trying to get all the play calls in, and all the protections in and different things like that, and now I feel like we can this year hopefully get more in depth into those things. So excuse me, but we want the guard and tackle to pull, and here's what we're going to do, and we were able to get just to kind of the surface of that. Now, okay, we want you to pull, but if the defense does this, here's how we can adjust on the fly, more so than just get there and then we'll try to figure it out later. I felt like I said, we're just able to get to the surface of things more so. So next year, I'd like to get more in depth. And again, I think we had a good senior class, very athletic senior class this year. But it was just hard for them to really buy into someone that they just met, and also that who, like I said, is the third person telling them the third different thing for 3 years now. So I think these younger guys so far have really bought in more to what we're trying to instill in them, rather more so than the old guys did, the upperclassmen did. So I think we may not be quite as athletic as we were this year, but I think overall, team wise, we'll be more bought into what we're trying to teach them as a coaching staff, both on and off the field. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. And the young guys, and we had 7 different freshmen that started at one position or another for us this year. So um, we had a good young core that I think will continue to grow. Again, facing what I think is the toughest competition in the state in 3A in our district, and so I'm excited to see those guys grow, and I've seen them mature and kind of take that leadership role on already as we are into the second semester of our school and in our weight program and things like that. Just taking more of leadership roles on those young guys stepping up, I think, is something that I'm looking forward to as well.
So here, let me jump back a little bit. So you said you started off 21 years old, first year head coach right out of the gate. Kind of just tell us how you approached that or what your mindset was going into your first year of 8-man football. Like you said, the first time you ever actually watched a game, being a head coach in the sport. Kind of tell us how that went
Yeah,
for you or how you grew on the fly.
right. Yeah, I always tell. I think I remember telling my wife that first year that I felt bad for the first group I was coaching because I knew I was going to grow as a coach over the years, and so they weren't getting the best of me that they could get. And I have grown. Things that I did that first year, man, I yelled a lot, um, and probably didn't need to, but I felt like I was, like I said, trying to come in and establish something that wasn't there yet, and try to establish. And it was hard. I mean, being 21-year-old coaching a bunch of 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds, I felt like I had to establish that, hey, we're not. I'm not here to be your friend. I got enough friends. I'm here to be your coach. I mean, I respect you, and I want a relationship with you. Um, but it's not a friend to friend relationship. It's a relationship of respect, mutual respect that you have for me as a coach, and doing what I ask, and I have you for you as a player, and understanding that you have different skill sets that I'm going to try to utilize to the best of the team's benefit. So, um, I've never yelled more coaching than I did that first year. Um, and I think I've kind of mellowed out a little bit as I still yell some if I need to. But um, again, I think it was more so trying to be someone, not to say that I wasn't, but people that I saw. I saw coaches yelling, and it's not that's the type of coach I grew up with necessarily, but just I felt like that's what I had to be. And not that I've never been someone who's going to cuss out a kid or anything like that, or belittle them or try to belittle them or anything like that. And sometimes on the football field, you got to yell just to be heard. Honestly, when they're out there across the field, I got to yell just to be heard. But I yelled more, and it was just I kind of came into a culture that was used to losing. And so just trying to get them to see there's more out there for you, and the work that you put in will produce fruit of success. It may not always be success in wins and losses, but anything that's worth doing, it's worth putting work in. So um, just trying to get them to understand that I'm not doing it for me. I want them to get that taste of success, and some of those kids have been through more in their 14, 15, 16 years of life than I have in my 28 years of life or 27 years of life. So just get them to see that hard work does pay off. I mean, on the football field, but also outside of the football field, which was what I was trying to get them to understand. And coming from college and coming from a program like Sabetha and growing up there, we had some benefits that these kids didn't grow up with. I was blessed with a great family. My parents are still married. We didn't have much divorce. I didn't have any divorce between my parents, grandparents, great grandparents, any of that. So these kids go through a lot. They got a lot going on. Um, but that first year was a lot, and I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I could just use what I'd done or what I grew up with, and I like it. Where I grew up, Sabetha was a split back beer under center. They still are to this day, and so we did a lot of that. We did split back beer, we did trap, counter, option, different things like that, and it worked well. We were able to. They were 1-8 the year before I got there. We went 4-5, and we were that last week 9 game from a playoff position. I've changed things offensively, defensively since then. Don't know necessarily if it's better or worse, but I like it a little bit better, and I think it just hopefully fits the kids' skill sets a little bit better than what we did. But there's great things, and being under center and getting to the line of scrimmage as fast as you possibly can. So um, I think I've grown a lot, but there's obviously a lot of growing left still to do.
So, Coach, you said you played baseball and football throughout high school and then into college. Just kind of tell us your take on multi-sport athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's extremely important, not only for football players, but whatever your sport you're doing is to be um, involved in other sports. I think it helps train the body to prepare for certain situations that you'll be into on the football field or court or wherever you're participating in an athletic event there. Um, I did all 3 sports in high school. I guess you could say 4 sports. We didn't have high school baseball at Sabetha when I was there, so we did football and then basketball and um, track in the spring, and then we did baseball in the summer. And then we obviously had summer basketball, and we had summer football practices and things like that. And then even in 7th grade at Sabetha, we had the split seasons. So in 7th grade, my parents made me try wrestling, and I hated it, and I was terrible. But now as an adult, I'm glad they made me try it. And even as a high school, I'm glad they made me try it. They didn't make me go out my 8th grade year because, like I said, they probably didn't want to endure that terrible wrestling either. But um, I think it's super important for kids to be involved, not only for the athletic benefits, but just being together with their teammates. I grew up with the guys um, that I played football with throughout high school, and we played football together from 5th grade until senior year. We played basketball together, an MAYB tournament starting in 3rd grade to senior year, and we played baseball tournaments together, and we did track in 7th and 8th grade and on into high school as well. So, I think there's the athletic benefits individually, but also the team aspects. If your aspirations are to win a state championship or get to the playoffs or anything in team sport, I think it's very important to be with your teammates. We worked out in the summer together and all that stuff. So um, I think it's huge. Kids nowadays like to specialize. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with specializing in a sense, putting more work into one sport than another. But when you're in a school, I mean, participate for your school and do those activities. Now that I'm at Nickerson, some people may know the story. I'm actually representing it on my shirt here, but Ava Jones, who's a top 100 uh, women's basketball recruit, just was in a terrible accident this summer with her family. But we were just talking today about doing multiple sports. She was obviously a great basketball player and committed to the University of Iowa, but she played volleyball and she did track and did multiple sports, and she said that really helped her. And um, just being with her teammates, but also just making her a good. I mean, volleyball and basketball are very similar as far as jumping and moving around, and basketball and football and cutting and doing all these different things. So I think it's extremely important for kids to do those things again, not only for their athletic development, but also just for the camaraderie and doing it with their friends. I mean, I have some great memories of going to basketball tournaments or baseball tournaments with my buddies growing up. And I think that's a lot of fun. And like I said earlier, we didn't have a lot of success as far as wins and losses in high school, especially in football and basketball. But those are still great memories and great friends that I still talk to every once in a while when we get back together and we can talk about certain aspects of the game and things like that. So I think it's really important for kids to participate in as many events as they can. I mean, this is the time to do it. I'm an old adult now, and I wish I could still play some of those sports and go back and do that one more time with my classmates and guys I grew up with. So take advantage of it while you can. And no matter whether you like the sport or not, you may not be the best basketball player or like basketball, but the guy you're helping out who really likes basketball is going to help you out in football if you help them out in basketball. And that kind of give and take type of thing there. So I think it's extremely important for kids to participate as much as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. We never really had a problem, I guess, when I was in high school of kids not doing because,
Right.
there wasn't a lot of other things going on. Plus,
Right.
you only had 3 sports, like you said. And you guys
Yeah.
had wrestling, but we didn't have wrestling. We just had football, basketball,
Right.
and track. And so if you didn't do those things, if you didn't have kids going out for that, you didn't even have a team. But
Hmm.
we always did.
Right.
And I like how you were saying your parents got involved and kinda made you try wrestling, and I'm not saying parents don't do that these days, but I do think if kids get out of their comfort zone and do a sport that they don't know or don't like at that age, then you're gonna be that much more comfortable trying new things, as you grow, and so and
Right.
I never got out of my comfort zone when I left Solomon to go back and work at Axtell, I was pretty content with, staying back home, and I would have
Yeah.
been fine staying in that area probably the rest of my life, honestly. But and then other opportunities opened up, I happened to be reading Ed Ogeron's book, the Flip the Script book that had came out,
Hmm.
and he one of the things he said in there was like, don't be afraid to take chances. And, when somebody calls you with a good opportunity, go, say yes,
Right.
take a chance because you're going to get out of your comfort zone. You're going to meet people. You're going to build connections, learn and grow. But yeah, I do think kids being together at these ages and getting out of their comfort zone and building team chemistry and helping each
Yep.
other support in basketball or baseball,
Hmm.
whatever. Yeah,
Yep.
100%. All right. So last question here, coach. What would be your biggest tips or advice to any aspiring football coaches?
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one. Um, I think like we're about to go into glazier clinics and different things like that. I think, networking and asking questions. The first thing I did when I got the Stafford job or was even offered it, I went on to K Preps and I found schools in every different classification that had a lot of success or continued success. And I sent each coach an email and said, hey, I'm first year head coach looking to see what it takes to be successful, and got a lot of responses. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are willing to talk, and most guys that are coaching football love to talk football and aren't afraid to share things. So, because everything usually is stolen, everything I've gotten is stolen from someone else. So, most guys are willing to share that stuff and love to see success of other coaches as well. So just reach out to people and get advice. I reached out to Coach Michael, obviously my high school coach, and then Coach Andy Lambert was the head coach of Sterling College when I was there, and a guy I have a lot of respect for, and really, I still talk to even though I only played 1 year, and that was even a redshirt year. I never actually got to step on the field, but still talk to and respect a lot. And his brother Chuck was the defensive coordinator there, and actually Chuck's son Caleb is a guy I just hired to my staff. So kind of crazy how things go full circle like that. But just networking and finding people that you trust and respect, and asking them questions. And then I think the biggest thing though is just it's easy, and it's easy for me to get so engulfed in the success of wins and losses and things like that. But that's not the most important thing. I don't always, like I said earlier, don't do a great job of it, but I try as much as I can to still be a great father and a great husband to my kids and my wife. And there's a lot of coaches out there that spend a lot of time. Um, in their craft, and that's great, and I love it. Um, and maybe, like I said, it hurts me in wins and losses at some point, but I'm not willing to risk my marriage or my relationship with my kids for my job, even though I love it. So just because you had coaches or you see coaches that after Friday night they have people come in Saturday mornings to watch film, and then as coaches they're meeting all day Sunday and things like that, doesn't mean you have to. I really don't think that makes the difference between a win or a loss. I think the relationship that you build with kids and the ability that you have to get them to buy into what you're doing is really what leads to success. I mean, I tell our kids every year there's now a 6 man, 9 state champions in the state of Kansas every year, and each one of them runs a different offense, runs a different defense, does different things on the weekends and things like that. It's all about, I mean, some of it's luck, and then just getting people to buy in and having that special group of kids that are just willing to say, "Hey, we're going to do whatever it takes to be successful." So I think that's really important. It's not all about football. It's not all about wins and losses. Like I said earlier, we had a terrible loss this year, and I'll just say we lost 108-0 to Andale this year, and it's tough to say. But the first thing that happened after the game was my 3-year-old came running up to me and gave me a big hug, and said, "Hey, Daddy," and that puts things into perspective. It really sucked losing 108-0, and then you see it on Max Prep's Instagram page the next day. But there's things that are way more important than that. And I try, like I said, I try to instill it in our kids. And there's things that I could still do better to be a better father and be a better husband. But I'd way rather win a Dad of the Year or Husband of the Year award than I would Coach of the Year. And so I think that's the hardest part for young coaches. And like I said earlier, something that I struggle with too my first couple of years, and still struggle with, is I get so engulfed in my job because I do enjoy it. I love it. I'm living my dream job right here. Get to be in the weight room all day and coaching football and coaching basketball and meeting with these amazing kids. But I got a family at home that needs me and needs my time and needs my effort. And I can't give everything I have to my job and then have nothing left when I get home. And sometimes I know there's some rough weekends after a rough loss. I'm not always in the greatest mood, and so that's where, again, having a great support system. I have a great wife, like I said, that handles my ups and downs throughout the season. So having a great support system, and again, like you said, just understanding that it's not all about the wins and losses. It's not all about the sport you coach. Don't risk relationships with your family or things like that just for what you do, because it's going to end at some point. Everybody gets fired and hired and all that stuff. You're going to move to a different job or things like that. So don't like I said, don't risk those relationships just for this job, even though you may love it.
Well, Coach, thanks again for joining me. Really appreciate you taking the time to come on, and especially out of your evening schedule. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the 8-Man Breakdowns podcast. If you have a question for me, the best way to reach me is by commenting in the comment section below. If you've learned anything or enjoyed any of these videos, please click subscribe and check out some of my previous videos right here. And thanks for tuning in, guys.